Hi everyone, and thanks for joining today. This webinar is called Creating Solutions That Positively Impact Lives Around the World, presented by myself, Blair DeVerti, VP of Operations for ATS Life Sciences segment in North America. It was originally released in December 2020. As a brief introduction, I'm Blair, and if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I've spent over 20 years in the industry, almost all of which with ATS. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, a project manager by profession, but a leader of talent by passion. And if you look me up on Facebook, you're not going to find my Facebook page. But if I did have one, I suspect you'd see my wife of 20 years, my 4 kids who I'm very proud of, and they would be playing hockey or fishing, my 2 favorite pastimes. And I'm certain you would see a lot of scenic pictures of my favorite place on earth, the Ottawa Valley on the Ottawa River in Ontario. As we're discussing today, creating solutions that positively impact lives around the world, I want, of course, to put this in the context of delivering manufacturing solutions to our customers. Our customers, the largest and most important manufacturers in the world, and manufacturing solutions, I'm talking about the custom engineered mechatronic, robotic, automation systems that were designed, built, and installed. ATS systems are similar to the equipment that you see on your screen now. Automation systems with robotics, mechatronics, servos, pneumatics, cams, PLCs, conveyors, dial indexers, vision and test systems, SuperTrack, and more. It's an engineer's playground. But the solutions we are providing are equally about the consulting that we provide and the design services before building the automation. And it's also about the training, the spare parts, the production ramp, the embedded resources, the services that we provide after delivering the automation. But the story I want to tell you about and the lessons you might learn are not so much about the end product. Although the technology is very cool, exciting, I want to talk about the specific project management techniques that we used, the art of disruption and how it makes your business better, inspiring leadership, and some of the mistakes that we've made along the way. I've chosen to do this in the form of a case study of a project we're currently executing. Being part of ATS Life Sciences segment, I feel we have lots of options to choose from. From blood collection systems to pharmaceuticals, respiratory care to diagnostics. Considering the timing of the project and the situation we're currently in right now, I chose to select this one, a COVID assembly system. It's an industry war story where ATS team delivered a complex piece of automation in an extremely short period of time, and it was during very uncertain pandemic times. This should provide you with some unique insights and might be interesting to you if you are part of the automation industry and just like that good war story, or if you're a project manager or a leader of people that need inspiring. There are other amazing stories across this industry, and out of respect for my colleagues in other segments, industries, and even companies, I encourage you to reach out and hear their experiences. These stories always have little nuggets that help you become more knowledgeable in the industry, a stronger project management, and ultimately a better leader in your day-to-day. I've broken up today's webinar in 3 main sections: the setup, the mission objective, our customer's challenge, and how success would be measured. Then I call the next section the nuggets, a few things we learned along the way and hopefully can deliver to your business. And the results in summary. I'll try to put a bow on things, summarize some walking away points for you and your business. The mission objective. During very early stages of the pandemic and uncertain, unsettling times, we were approached by a very good and very capable customer. This customer approached us to build automated assembly lines to build their COVID test kits. It was clear that there was going to be a global supply shortage, and there was going to be a need for an aggressive monthly capacity requirement, and most importantly, to deliver in 14 weeks. It was a non-negotiable, 14 weeks period. Upon internal review, we also had 3 additional constraints. First, there would be no procedural deviations. We would stick with what had made us successful in the past and make no attempts to significantly reinvent ourselves. The risk to the program and the operational stability was too great to make any significant changes. Second, no other customers would be sacrificed. That is, no other program schedule would be sacrificed or purposely delayed because we chose to do this one. We have a culture of delivering per our commitment that took years to establish. We'd be unwilling to compromise that in the minds of our customers or our employees. Finally, and arguably most important, we would not compromise on safety of our project team members. Again, it was early pandemic times. We were very uncertain and still establishing safety protocols. But we stated that we would have 0 safety incidents. That included no positive COVID cases. We were declared an essential business, and we're privileged to stay open and come to work every day. It was our duty to our employees, their families, our customers, and the patients that rely on their products that we remain open. An outbreak was not an option, no matter how important this particular project was. We had a very strong desire to participate in the pandemic response and COVID fight. This appeared to be the opportunity to contribute in a very meaningful way. So we sketched out a high-level response to the objective. Our technical solution would be roughed out as 2 lines consisting of 3 cells each. Each cell would operate at an OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness, of 85%. To accomplish this, we would have to leverage 3 business units and leverage the strength of ATS's talent and people bandwidth. Life Sciences in Cambridge, our Life Sciences headquarters is based in Ontario, Canada, would act as the prime and design and build the biggest of the 3 cells. Life Sciences in Chicago, our US flagship, was identified to have the talent in order to deliver the most process-intensive cell. And finally, our ATS test division, located in Woodbridge, Ontario, was tapped on the shoulder to provide the leak test cell, as they have industry-leading depth in end-of-line functional and leak testing capabilities for our end customer products. Commitment. We would need all 3 divisions to run 24/7 operation. That included design all the way through to installation, and that meant a culture of zero weight on decisions. That would have to be established immediately. As discussed, safety, as already mentioned, was of paramount importance. An outbreak would have been catastrophic to the program's ability to deliver. Employing 3 divisions gave us the opportunity to pivot if we did have an incident, but the disruption would have been unrecoverable within 14 weeks. For the sake of our employees and the program's success, we needed to keep everyone healthy. Finally, we knew that the equipment would be fast-tracked through its normal debug and product integration phase. That meant it was likely that we would bring bugs and even design flaws into the field and early production. To proactively plan for this, it meant that our job wouldn't end with installation. We planned to assist our customer through their production ramp-up phase for 3 months with on-site hypercare on a 24/7 basis. So a project of this kind would typically be quoted between 35 and 45 weeks from receipt of purchase order to the factory acceptance test complete. We knew that our critical path very well, and we understood 3 major external risks. There would be a period of high-level customer influence, a period when they still didn't understand their requirements, customer technical preferences, undefined non-negotiables. Due to the importance of the program, customer would have significant communication expectations. Full scope definition was still unfolding. It was unsettling starting a project, not having all the information, and knowing that our customer they themselves were still piecing together the specific needs. Second, there was a phase of high-level dependence on others. We could make our commitments, but we had to choose the right third-party partners to ensure that they met their commitments. If there was a supplier that didn't deliver on time, or there were quality issues of our components or subsystem assemblies, then we would miss our commitments to our customer. It was unsettling to think about the number of third parties that we were dependent on, and the thought that any one of them could prevent us from making our delivery. Finally, there was technical uncertainty. Even if we were able to extract all the scope and quality requirements from our customer, even if we had solid project and procurement management, even if we were able to build and power on the machine per the plan, we knew that we would have technical misses that we would have to react to. We knew that it wasn't possible to anticipate every technical hurdle, and we wouldn't have flawless solutions in place. We knew that we would have that oh crap moment, and we would need to pivot. It would have been very easy at this point to be paralyzed by these obstacles and to come to the conclusion that this project was not possible to complete in 14 weeks. It was too disruptive to other projects, too risky to the health and safety of our employees and our business. It would have been easy to throw in the towel before we started. And if it weren't for that burning desire to participate in the COVID fight, we may have done that. But this was our chance, and we truly believe that if there was any organization that could do it, it was us. And so, we played a game. That brings us to our first nugget. Play the game called Pretend It's Possible. A simple enough concept, but ultimately led to all the future nuggets that I'm going to talk about. It's an important game because it changes the way you yourself think and the way your team members align to the collective goal. It was easy to get paralyzed by these obstacles. We've already discussed this. Without knowing it, you are already playing a game called The Reasons Why This Is Impossible. Outwardly saying the words, "Let's play a game." Let's play a game called Pretend This Is Possible does several things. As already discussed, it changes the way you look at the problem. By calling it a game, you lower people's defenses. After all, it's just a game. Why should you get too worked up about it? By saying pretend, you allow people to think outside the box, remove operational obstacles, and talk about what needs to change. After all, it's just a game. Once you start, you will find that the conversation goes in this direction. People will begin with the end in mind, one of Covey's habits. The focus immediately shifts to what does success look like, the success criteria. Project managers will recognize this as a project charter. And then you will begin to productively discuss what needs to happen to achieve this. Step by step and working backwards, you will build out what project managers refer to as the network dependency chart. What needs to happen to get to this point? The team will identify and recognize obstacles, but that's okay. We're just playing a game. You'll find that the conversation will be focused on solutions to the obstacles. And project managers will refer to that as the preliminary risk register. Then a dirty 4-letter word will be said. But if you look closely in the game rules, it clearly states luck is not a strategy. With luck not a strategy, it's okay to hope for the best, but you have to plan for the worst. Anytime anyone mentions luck, snuff it from the vocabulary. Go directly to jail. Do not collect $200. Luck is not a strategy. Because when you don't rely on luck, your game evolves to risk management. Have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D if necessary. Project managers recognize this as a mature risk management plan. And while you're playing the game, now with all the game pieces on the board, everyone's having fun and focused on the possible. And because you were playing, you might not have noticed that something special just happened. Your team has rallied behind you and believes we can do this. Project managers will look at all of this and recognize it as the preliminary framework for a project execution plan. Is it still impossible? So, for the ATS project, we played the game. And for the first time, we found that we started at a 35 to 45 week schedule, and it started to take shape. We looked at how we could parallel activities, shorten durations, expedite materials, remove phases, and ultimately crash the schedule. But now we had a framework that everyone involved agreed would be reasonable to execute under 14 weeks. There was still the risk of customer influence and changes. There was still high dependency on our supply chain and our procurement partners, and there was still a high level of technical uncertainty. But one at a time, we identified these risks and we knocked them down from the obstacles. We put their plans and staffed them with people. And finally, we discussed the plan with our customer. We were transparent with the risks and had a meaningful discussion on what we needed from them and how they could help us achieve our collective goal. So we had a plan, but plans don't get things done, people do. A team was assigned, and now we needed them to do incredible things, make personal sacrifices, and make great things happen. So the next step was getting people to understand the mission and invest themselves in its success. That brings us to our next nugget. So our next nugget, establish the mission. To start with a quote, plans and good intentions don't get things done, people do. Find a way to inspire and great things happen. We did this by branding the program. It was the first thing we did. We gave it a code name. We identified the program as Mercury, Program Mercury, and we thought this was appropriate. Mercury, after all, is a fast, shiny metal that's very hard to handle. In Roman mythology, Mercury is the messenger of the gods, carrying the most important information. This seemed appropriate for a COVID test kit. And finally, the Mercury program was the name of the first US manned space mission. This is a tip of the cap to those engineers that seemingly make the impossible possible on a regular basis. We also established a tagline, 14 weeks period. We put it on all our presentations. We said it often. We started meetings with it, and we ended meetings with it. We got it embroidered on our shirts and delivered them to the team. It was the only thing that mattered whenever there was a difficult decision to be made. We repeated the mantra, 14 weeks period. It helped us ground us through our processes and our most difficult decisions. We found it extremely effective to brand the program. Program Mercury and 14 weeks period were proudly worn and discussed by all. Next, I provided a mission briefing. Because we had 3 locations and it was pandemic times, I introduced the mission via a video call to the teams in 3 divisions simultaneously. I made sure to answer all the questions. And because a few team members weren't there, we recorded it. That happened by accident, but it ended up being extremely effective because we had new team members that joined the project often, and the video served as a good orientation tool. Communication was extremely important, but on this program, because things were moving so fast, it would have been easy to not orient new team members. If we hadn't recorded it, a key message may have been missed. The inspiration that would get an individual through a frustrating or particularly disheartening period would have been missed. Further, the video would be made available to the rest of the division, those that were not directly involved. This served to clearly establish the priority and the particular project importance to others. It was important for them to understand why expedited decisions were being made. There were areas and programs that were being disrupted. So it was important that the entire division's energy was behind the project. It helped others to pick up the slack, and they too could be proud. Even though they weren't directly on the team, they needed to feel part of the team. They needed to be part of this something special. Motivation and inspiration. Recall that this webinar, Creating Solutions that Positively Impact Lives Around the World, finding purpose is important. If you want your people to be inspired, rally behind a cause, feel empowered, and give that last 10% or even a little bit more. In the case of ATS Life Sciences, we focus our inspiration and purpose around our customers' products. Our equipment helps them manufacture higher quality, more affordable, and readily available medical devices and pharmaceuticals that ultimately improve people's lives, if not save them. In case this mission briefing didn't do its job to inspire the team, one of our team members certainly did, sharing a very personal story and why the Mercury program was specifically important to him, his family, and his son who suffered from a respiratory illness. My strong recommendation, whatever your business and whatever your leadership influence is recognize motivation and inspiration as critically important. Make sure your people understand the why, their purpose, and how they fit in. The takeaway here is plans and good intentions don't get things done. People do. Find a way to inspire, and great things will happen. Next nugget, establishing the rules of engagement. With your team understanding the why, the role they play in the team, and the critical elements of success, it's important to establish the rules and the framework which they need to operate within. Clearly, schedule was our #1 priority. All but one of the rules of engagement revolved around schedule, speed, and its success. Schedule drives every decision. Clear, simple, consistent messaging and behaviors. It aligns with 14 weeks period. Engineering teams, they were to set the pace fast. They were the first out of the gate, so multiple design shifts and an overtime sprint. We needed them to set the pace for the rest of the team. Spoiler alert, they stepped up in a big way. Drive decisions. Run everything to a decision point. No email and wait. A personal pet peeve of mine is a dangerous belief that I feel has crept into our workplace culture, that somehow sending an email and waiting for a response relieves you of your obligations, your responsibilities to meet your commitment. I can't count the number of times when asking for an update on an overdue assignment and the response is usually that I'm waiting for such and such from so and so. Further probing usually reveals that, oh, well, I sent a couple emails in the last week. We got reacquainted with our cell phones, the voice function on our cell phones. I provided my cell phone number and was available 24/7, and other team members were as well. And then finally, the only rule not related to schedule was we need you. Think safety. Again, we're in early pandemic times. We were very concerned about the health of our employees and what it would mean if somebody tested positive. So, physical distancing, regular hand washing and surface washing, deep cleaning, and symptomatic screening and staying home if you're sick was critically important to us. And setting the rules of engagement for our customer as well. Again, we reminded them that schedule drove every decision. We reminded them of their role in removing schedule constraints. We told them that we would be basing our decisions, our technical decisions, based on availability. If it wasn't on the shelf and immediately available, it wasn't considered. We would repurpose equipment and components from other programs. Our supply chain team determined what vendors had with the shortest lead times, and we verified their capability. We assessed the risk of implementing, and then, if all things were equal, then we would consider customers' technical preferences. Establishing direct lines of communication. We established direct lines of communication between disciplines. That meant software to software, mechanical to mechanical, hardware to hardware. But PMs and project managers were copied on all communications. Critical process information was required immediately. We told them that we didn't know what we didn't know. And so in the absence of information, we were moving forward. If there was something critical, a non-negotiable, we needed to know it now. And again, we asked them to trust us. We would make good technical decisions. We had worked with one another before, and the speed of trust was important. This was a capable customer, and they knew our capability. Trust us to make good technical decisions, and if there were deficiencies, we had a hypercare team, and we would make sure that we corrected any issues during the early days of production ramp. That would be the next phase of our planning and serve to make improvements after delivery. Okay, the next nugget, solution flexibility and the ability to pivot. This next nugget will come across as a shameless plug, I'll admit it, but solution flexibility and the ability to pivot was critically important to our fast-moving project with changing and challenging scope requirements, schedule obstacles, and technical discoveries. For the automation industry techies out there, this will be the only part of the presentation where I discuss with you what I can about the technology that was deployed on the program. On our success and our ability to respond to the changing and discovery of new requirements, solution flexibility was key. So ATS SuperTrack is a proprietary programmable pallet conveyance system which uses linear motor technology to provide a high-speed platform for our automation systems. It has been a differentiator for us for 20 years, and we anchor over 50% of our automation systems to this conveyor platform. It is now available on the open market. And as you look at the video, I want you to understand we did not know all the product and process requirements or even the number of stations for the automation system. But SuperTrack's inherent scalability and programmability provided us with the flexibility and confidence we needed so that we could parallel automation system design with what we were physically building on the main chassis. Further, we had several SuperTrack systems on our floor, so we were able to redeploy 2 of those systems to this program. It was a huge schedule enabler. So robots. Second, we chose to heavily use robotics for the material handling systems. We could have chosen to hard tool, cam-driven pick-and-places, alternatively pneumatic or servo pickups, but robotics like SuperTrack offered us flexibility. If we didn't get our design right out of the gate, we were much more likely to recover with a programming change to a robot than a mechanical machined replacement of a cam. We're also able to do a lot of offline prototyping and testing with the robots, which gave us more confidence in de-risking the technical uncertainty that we spoke about during the full line integration. There are several robot suppliers in the market, and ATS works with almost all of them. We usually make our robot selections based on technical capability, commercial competitiveness, and ultimately customer preference and familiarity. In this case, with over 30 robots as part of the solution, we worked with 3 suppliers who had arms in inventory and available for our immediate shipment. Next, we focused on the inspection systems. Being a medical device, there are of course several critical to quality attributes that need to be inspected. ATS Cortex and Smart Vision is a hardware-software imaging solution that provides scalability in the number of cameras and the lights that can be quickly added to the system. Again, ATS had several of these programs already employing the Cortex on site, so we were able to quickly redeploy to this project to meet its needs. When a new inspection criteria was added to the scope requirements, we were able to just program an additional station position on the SuperTrack and plug in additional overhead camera to the ATS Cortex. Again, a huge schedule enabler. Another element was the kits needed to be leak tested, but all the requirements again weren't perfectly known to us at the onset. I already mentioned the involvement of ATS Test in Woodbridge, Ontario, a division that specializes in leak testing and end-of-line functional testing. They have established a software product called ATS Test Executive, as well as a hardware product called Genie. And again, by employing these products and the flexibility that they inherently have built into their designs, we were able to pivot and evolve the design solution as the requirements were being discovered. Finally, we applied our Industry 4.0 IoT solution, the Illuminate Manufacturing Intelligence System, to monitor the performance of the equipment. This was invaluable to us during the debug phase of the project because we were able to collect the performance data of the machine, Pareto the faults, the downtime events, and the rejects. Identify pallets, even nests upon which were causing us the most amount of difficulty, make the necessary adjustments, and rerun for improvement. The product has significantly increased the speed at which we're able to run, fix, and iterate, an industry-proven debug approach to increase equipment's overall performance. Even today, both ATS and customer are able to remotely access the line to monitor performance or investigate abnormalities in production. This provides us with the critical data we need to plan our next round of improvements to make sure that we're most impactful and ultimately increase good parts produced. So again, in conclusion, I'll apologize for the shameless plug, but these are the products and the design solutions that offered us flexibility, that allowed us to pivot solutioning of this system without knowing all the requirements. In order to make this into a teachable or generic lesson learned, I'll just suggest that you know your strengths, stick with the technologies you know, and select solution elements that provides you with flexibility and the ability to pivot as scope requirements and technical obstacles are discovered. At this point, I need to come back to the people. I've mentioned it earlier, but I can't stress enough how the talent, motivation, and endurance of this team ultimately made us hit our goals. During early phases of the pandemic, when the project was launching, many people became anxious and worried for a variety of reasons. Our employees and their families certainly were. And I am certain that the leaders listening to this presentation have seen a definite increase in the amount of time that they're spending on human resources and employee relations over the past several months. Perhaps a few words on how we have dealt with it. Where no communication leads to heightened anxiety, it's best to be open and transparent. With this in mind, our leadership team went on record several times stating that their decisions were likely imperfect, that they would be revisited when new information became available, and always encourage feedback from employees. With that, there was a commitment to the employees that all changes in behaviors must adhere to 3 commitments. Our decisions would be imperfect, but we prioritized that our commitments would be in this very specific order. Keep employees and visitors safe. Everyone goes home healthy every day. Number 2, remain operational for our life sciences customers and the patients that relied on their products. And 3, remain financially resilient for the health of our business and employment of our workforce. Everyone knew that the work we were doing would save lives, but we also had to ensure that we were keeping each other safe. By keeping these commitments highly visible and maintaining a regular and open communication with employees, we weren't always perfect in our decisions, but we were transparent and continuously improving. As a result, we were able to rely on a highly energetic, engaged, talented workforce and a team that was almost entirely self-motivated. Our collective motivation was to do what we could to combat this pandemic. For instance, some designers put in 80 to 100-hour work weeks consecutively in the early days of the project. This was clearly unsustainable, but a necessary sprint that effectively set the pace for the activities that would follow. As a result, the design was over 90% released for material purchases on day 9 of the project. Though we had a motivated workforce, 14 weeks isn't a long time to get a project of this scale done. However, it is an exceptionally long time for individuals to remain in a high-stress crunch mode. The timeline necessitated the postponement of holidays, massive overtime, and working 24/7. As a result, people went above and beyond, but in some cases, burnout did occur. We watched out for each other and addressed the situations as soon as possible. When people reached their limit, we had to tell some to go home, get some rest, and come back fresh when they could. Your star players can't play the entire game. No question, it was a high-stress work environment, but everyone on the team would say it was worth it. Similarly, third-party suppliers and partners came together big time, and they were recognized for it. We've since given out awards to these suppliers for outstanding achievement. In summary, you want to be successful, but not at the expense of your reputation, employee burnout, or long-term relationships with customers, suppliers, and partners. Look out for one another and ensure you give credit where credit is due. For the next nugget, I think this is something that's talked about often, but often overlooked. It's the post-project review or post-mortem review. I believe strongly that it's necessary for 2 reasons. The obvious, you are able to discuss things that went well and things that did not go well, and make recommendations in your processes to either increase the chances of success, improve efficiency, or avoid future risk of undesirable reoccurrence. But secondly, and often forgot about, is it's recognizing that your team has invested a lot of time in the project and deserve an opportunity to voice their opinions on what went well, what did not go well. It's a form of closure. And I found it interesting to summarize their perspectives and the nuggets that they delivered and see how it compares to the ones that I've presented. I'll share them here. So I'm going to share with you a reflection on the key program elements that the team felt was critical to the success. We see establish the mission, again, establishing the success criteria, non-negotiables, and the tagline, deliver in 14 weeks period. People came up, recruiting the best of the best, removal of distractions, and clearly focusing them on this program. We also talked about the commitment requirements, and that if a person couldn't make those commitment requirements, they could be removed from the program. Not maliciously, just traded for someone who could make those commitments. Responsibility and authority. Everyone understood what they were responsible for and what they were authorized to proceed with. Sticking to what works. Everyone agreed that we had been successful in the past and that we wouldn't deviate from established processes, although a no-wait culture was critical. And the no-wait culture, a war room was established. And when information wasn't available, risk was evaluated and a path forward was immediately decided upon. Plan B contingencies were used and phones were rediscovered. And customer management. We had a great customer and the team acknowledged that. We acclimated them early to the pace that we were expecting, and as a result, they were able to keep up. Concept designs based on availability. The team acknowledged that being able to pull things such as ATS SuperTrack from other projects and immediately start working on them on this project was an advantage. Vendor management. Having a dedicated project procurement lead and the supporting procurement staff allowed engineers full access to the vendors and the information that they required. Expediting premiums were pre-approved and we made decisions to manufacture locally. Scope management. Applications team remained engaged throughout the program, and if there were any scope requests, they were there to make sure that they were fully defined, commercially resolved, and approved before the project team was distracted. And we talked about hypercare, recognizing that a full service team, including a separate PM, to be assigned to everything after installation, including spare parts, installation, ramp support, subject matter expert, preventative maintenance, and manuals and documentation. So what were the results? How did the project go? We achieved the committed delivery in 14 weeks. The design team sprinted to release 90% of the materials by day 9. That's from a whiteboard sketch to fully designed in less than 2 weeks. The line was built and powered on by the end of week 9. A huge credit to the procurement team, our supply chain partners, and our builders. As mentioned, debug phase had a lot of technical uncertainty, and we had to make several on-the-fly changes. However, fortunately, we had a formal risk register with contingency plans in place, and SuperTrack offered us a flexible core platform technology that allowed us to pivot without delay. Much to our customers' credit, they entered production and made first saleable product in less than 17 weeks after placing the order with us. And currently, ATS has over 300 individuals that have formally punched hours to the project work orders. There were no lost time injuries over the course of the project. We continue to support our customer through their initial weeks and months of production, and we continue to install upgrades to improve production throughput almost on a weekly basis. Millions of COVID tests have been produced on our equipment. Everyone on the project is tremendously proud of the accomplishment, but also recognize that their job is not done yet. We still continue to support our customer to ensure that their production targets are met. We have other programs that need to be delivered, and we have other COVID response and life-saving medical device projects that are requesting expedited timelines. So, a few final thoughts. I'll just read it. Sometimes disruption happens. You either find a way through it or you don't. Remember that although risky to purposely inject disruptions into an operation, it can be tremendously rewarding and opens up new opportunities. By challenging your business in new ways that don't damage its foundational strength, your organization will be prepared for the times when disruption is not a choice. Finally, inspire your people. Find motivation in those that rely on your work. Challenge yourself and your organization. You'll be stronger for it and have a lot more fun. I hope this story and the lessons we learned will be of use. Thank you for your time. Is there any questions?